It is so great to see some returning faces, but also some new faces. Thank you guys for joining us today. This is our January meeting of the Housing Facility Services Committee. In the past year, as we have been adjusting to COVID, we've also kind of adjusted how we've approached our monthly meetings. And so we'll continue to talk about committee activities, but we really have been using this time more as a roundtable time for folks to connect and share some things that they're working through on their campus, but also to ask questions and to be resources for each other, because these are definitely unprecedented times. And so we're going to continue to navigate them together and share the knowledge that we have and learn from each other. So thank you for being here today. I do want to make sure that I continue to draw folks' attention to the resources available through the ACUHO-I website. There is the online community, and if you have not connected with that, I encourage you to do so. There are groups connected to interest areas or professional areas, and so a lot of conversation happens through the online community outside of some of the things that we talk about here today. So another resource for you. Also want to draw folks' attention to the fact that we do have YouTube recordings of many of the roundtables that have taken place over the past year. So another good resource, if you've not been able to jump on or join some of those, you can listen to those at your convenience. This week, there are a number of virtual items taking place, and so we're sharing those with you. Immediately following our meeting today, we have our Sustainability Committee meeting. And so at some point, Joel will put the link to that meeting in the chat. So if you would like to join that conversation, we would welcome you to do so. Additionally, there's some roundtables related to submitting proposals and then also TPE. My name is Teresa Frederick. I currently serve as the Associate Director for Facilities Management at Missouri State, and I'll let Joel introduce himself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joel Gaddy. I'm with Housing and Residential Life at Oklahoma State University. It's great to see you all today.
We do want to encourage folks to continue to use the chat throughout today's session. Sometimes folks don't have the ability to connect via video, and so we welcome folks to participate in the chat in that way. A lot of times folks have used the chat also to answer some of the questions or provide input to folks throughout the meeting, so please feel free to utilize that function. This is a conversation-based meeting, and so Joel and I don't have all of the answers or planned things we want to say for each of the discussion topics, and so this really is your time for you to ask your questions and to share with each other. If you're able, and your data can handle it, it is nice to have webcams available to help folks feel connected. And then if you want to share names and positions, sometimes that's helpful for folks because then they can connect with you outside of the meetings. One of the things we want to do today is committees have looked pretty different in the past year. And so a lot of things have kind of been on hold or looking different. And so today we just really wanted to share a little bit about what each of the subcommittees of the Housing Facility Services Committees do, and then connect you with our folks who are leading those groups so that if you have questions or would like to join them in their work, you can do that. So we'll do a real brief run through for each of our groups, and then we're going to get into some conversation. I'm going to turn it over first to JJ Bryce.
Thank you, Teresa. I'm JJ Bryce, and I'm the rising chair of the ACUHO-I APA Housing Facilities Conference that up to this past October was an annual in-person conference and vendor fair for housing facilities professionals. It's a wonderful conference for those of us who do this sort of work because it's kind of, most of us have a unique role in that we're the only people on our campuses who do that. And so getting involved can be a wonderful thing for your career development or just to learn about new vendors, products, and construction methods, those sorts of things. So if you're interested in participating, we did a virtual conference this past year in the fall And we are hoping to return to an in-person conference in the upcoming October, but no decisions have been made yet. Either way, if it's the type of thing that you're interested in connecting with others in a conference style environment, either virtual or in person, certainly reach out and I can get you in touch with. There are many different facets, whether that's campus tours, programming, and coming up with sessions and those sorts of things, leading roundtables. There's a lot of different ways to get involved. If you're interested, certainly send me an email and I will connect you to Aubrey and Allison, our program committee chairs as well.
Thank you, JJ. Appreciate that. Next, we're going to jump to education and resources. Steve, were you able to join us? I'm scrolling through. It doesn't look like Steve.
I saw him. Yeah, I don't think I saw him pop in today.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and share a little bit about our education and resources group. So our education and resources group, they really look to find ways to build on the knowledge available to our group. And so a couple of the things that they've done in the past is they've established a best practices program. So when folks have things that they've come up with on their campuses or approaches to delivery, then they can submit it through our best practices program as a way to be shared with the greater community. So that's a piece that this group works on. Another piece that this group does is they provide scholarships for folks to participate in the APA Institute. And so there are a number of folks on the call today that have participated in the APA Institute. And so if you have completed or participated in a session of the APA Institute, if you would utilize one of the reactions where you smile or give a thumb or something, that would be great. So we can have an idea of some of our folks who have participated in that and might be able to serve as a resource. Great. Gary Thompson, can I put you on the spot and ask you to share a little bit about your experience with the APA Institute?
Yeah, many years ago, I'm dating myself, but I started out many years ago going to the Institute with the idea that we just needed more of more, I guess. We had very little to pull from back then. Found it very enlightening. The week-long sessions that focused on various aspects of facilities management in higher education, and was taught through their what they call the body of knowledge, which is their books of knowledge that they have imparted on that. They're people that were doing the presentations, the faculty on the workshop were all just top notch across the country, many years of experience. And what it led up to back then was the APA then decided to go to a credentialing for education facilities professionals. And as a result of that, they went to the EFP, and now they've gone to the Certified Education Facilities Professional. So it's a great way to add meaning to your professional life. It's a great way to get acknowledgement from a body that, independent body that will evaluate your ability to grasp the information and maintain it in a way that you can be then transferred your skill set to your current position, perhaps, or to others as you move through your career. So the APA folks are just great to work with. Every single one of them I've ever interacted with for these several decades now have just been great to work with. So I would encourage you all to take a look at it on the APA.org site, see what it's all about. It's a great tool to put in your toolkit for your own professional development. And I would encourage you to look at other members of your staff. If you have in-house staff on your campus for housing facilities, it's a great way to expose them to different aspects of the management and get them involved as well into a career path that's pretty darn good. So I would encourage it for anybody.
Thank you, Gary. That's a
Bruce,
great
I
explanation.
think Brandon Chandler also had some thoughts that he was willing to share.
Great.
Oh.
Brandon?
Hi. You asked, so I figured I'd raise my hand. Yeah, I'm in one of the, I'm in the cohort right now for the Certified Facility Planner class or institute. So I think I'm scheduled to take the exam in March. Really good information, not exactly new information for those of us that have been in the game for a while, but as the world continues to evolve, it's definitely helpful to have a few extra letters and certifications in your back pocket to use as you need to move from room to room or campus to campus. So if you've got a couple of, 2 or 3 months to spend a few hours just reading through and answering the questions and getting ready, I believe in the Eastern region of APA, there were a few scholarships that were offered, and I got one of those. I'm going through it without any personal cost. So check your region to see if there might be an opportunity to do that where you are as well.
That's great, Brandon. Thank you. And so there's a couple of different pieces then that we've talked about today that are great educational opportunities for folks. The first is the APA Institute, and those are those week-long training courses that Gary touched on. So this group does offer scholarships for folks to participate in that. It covers the cost of the registration for those events. That APA Institute does prepare you with knowledge that will help you with what Chandler's talked about, which is becoming a certified education, the CEF.
Facilities professional. You got it. You got it. I'm only laughing. I sat in, I actually helped write the exam for that. And I'm going to tell you what, just what if you are doing the work that we all are doing every day on our campus with our facilities, and as Brandon said, you've got the ability to study up on the information that's given you. There's not anyone I've known that really with a little diligence couldn't make a good effort and pass this examination. It's really a good thing to do if you can figure a way to get supported in getting it done.
That's great. So great. So with a lot of times, as Chandler said, with APA and your regional groups of APA, there are scholarships to participate in that certification program. So lots of great opportunities. Gary, Brandon, thank you both for sharing. I appreciate that. Folks, make note of those great names of folks who can be resources if you have questions about those items. I am sure that they are willing to share further if you've got some questions. And so Steve McKenzie works with that group. If you are interested in connecting with them, I would encourage you to reach out to Steve. Next, we have our committee for the recruitment of minorities and women in housing facilities, and that is led by Dee Dee.
Good afternoon, everybody. How's it going out there in higher education land? So nice to be with you all. Our group, which is one of the newer subcommittees in the last several years, our primary focus is certainly on connectivity with folks in the field who are working in housing facilities who happen to be staff of color or women. And as I'll probably state the obvious that there are fewer maybe staff of color and women in some of these roles. Some of our role is to, hopefully bring more people in, to have more discussions, to provide support, to really tackle how do we get more of our younger professionals to consider this particular area of campus housing as perhaps an area that they maybe want to pursue their career in. We have annually been responsible for holding a roundtable at the fall conference where we are creating vignettes and we're talking about actual case studies that have occurred for folks in the facilities departments that have had firsthand experience to develop strategies. And again, overall and above is to really support the folks that are working in this particular area as we work to be far more inclusive of folks in the facility area as we move forward as an organization. So I am going to post in the chat a Google form, Google Doc form, where if you're interested in providing mentorship or want to be mentored, you can sign up. It's a database, and our committee is trying to connect people who've been in the field who do want to mentor women and staff of color in this particular area, because there can be more challenges for those staff members. And so that's one of our larger initiatives. So I'm going to paste that into the chat for anybody that's on this call that does want to go ahead and be a support to folks within that area. So again, that's probably going to be our major initiative in terms of that for this year. Again, look forward to some future talks and direction from our new ACUHO-I Executive Board member, Josh Ganna. Perhaps Josh has some things that he would like us to focus on too. So I know we're going to engage with him in the future, and I'm looking forward to that. And we'll share that with the committee at large once we get together again. Any questions for me?
Thank you, Dee Dee. Great group under a great leader. So if you are looking to connect with that group, Dee Dee's email address is there. Do want to draw folks' attention to the chat. Thank you, JJ. JJ has shared for the Eastern region of APA. There is still some funding available for the exam. Also, Dee Dee, as she shared, has put the link for the mentoring program in the chat. And so I would encourage folks, wherever you are in your career, whichever is the right option for you, to consider that and providing some support. Now we're going to switch over to Joel and our communications committee.
Hey, all, good afternoon. Again, it's great to see everyone. As far as the communications subcommittee, I do have to apologize to those folks that may have reached out in our interest form that I did not reach out to. Got the list and meant to make contact with folks. So if that was you and you were someone that had filled out our interest form and haven't heard anything back, that's on me. That's my bad, but I'll fix that. But if you haven't and you would like to be involved in some of these subcommittees, again, the form is there. I think I posted it already in the chat, but I'll probably re-plug it again towards the end of the meeting. It's like email address and click buttons of things that you're interested in. But then we're going to do a better job making sure that information is communicated to the subcommittee chairs so that they can make contact with those folks and get you on board and get you involved. So as far as our committee group as it is, we're just trying to make sure that we're keeping our email listserv up and accurate. If you're someone that has never seen an email from me randomly after seeing a post about our meetings or upcoming events from the committee, and you would like to be someone that gets that email, by all means, you can reach out to me, send me an email, and I'll make sure to add you. That way you can get those recurring updates. I mean, they are a shorter blurb than what might go into the open forum, but at the same time, we definitely want to make sure that you all are as connected as possible. And if there's other folks in your organization that you think would benefit from that as well, please feel free to share them over, and we'll get them on. So that's kind of where we're at as the communications committee. We have talked about trying to pick up some different avenues of communication, whether that's more active weekly posts on the open forum, or if it's just providing more updates on what the individual subcommittees have done in between the monthly meetings. But if there are ideas, thoughts that any of you have, definitely open to hearing it. We want to be here for y'all and to help each other out as much as possible. So, yeah, that's all I got.
Thank you, Joel. Okay, so our Sustainable Facilities Committee, I'm going to speak briefly about that. We do have a member of our group that joins the Sustainability Committee that's led by Robin. They are meeting immediately following the meeting, and I believe Robin is open to bribes is what I saw in the chat. So let Robin know what motivates you to join his meeting. But immediately following, would love it for some folks to jump over and join that group to talk about sustainable initiatives on your campus. Our executive committee liaison has just changed, and we're real excited that Josh Ganna from University of Washington has stepped into the role as the facilities and physical environment director. And so Josh, if you are on and would like to say anything, we'd like to open the floor to you at this time. He may not be available today because this is our first one that we were able to have him join on, but we'll make sure that folks get a chance to hear a little more from Josh as we move into meetings in the future. All right, we do have some leadership opportunities for folks. In general, like everyone's welcome. So if you want to join one of our subcommittees, please do, or you just want to be on our mailing list, we're welcome to that. But we are looking for a couple of folks in some leadership roles. We are looking for someone to chair our Sustainable Facilities Committee. And so if that's something you're interested in, please let me know. Additionally, we're looking for a chair-elect for this group. And so if that is something that you're interested in, please let me know and we can talk further with you about what that opportunity would look like. In general, Jill's talked about connecting our committee chairs have. I would want folks to know when you fill out that interest form, there's no specific time commitment. We're just going to continue to loop you in about things that are taking place and really would just like to be able to connect with you and share what's going on. So there's not a specific time requirement. Don't feel if you fill that out that you've committed hours. That's not what it's about. We know that folks have 1, 2, some of you have 6 jobs that you're doing right now, but would just love to be able to connect with you. So now we're going to move into the roundtable portion. This is our consult with colleague part of the meeting where we just have topics that we throw out for folks to discuss. Please know that you can also put conversation topics in the chat and we will throw those out to the group. So feel free to engage in whatever way you see fit for you. And then this is really your time. So I don't have anything prepared when I throw these topics out. I'm not going to drop a bunch of knowledge. That's not it. It's what are folks' thoughts? What wisdom do you want to share? So our first topic is spring and changes in protocol. Are there things that folks want to talk about or questions that folks want to throw out to the group? There was a lot of conversation in the summer months about what folks wanted to talk about. What are we doing for cleaning? What are our frequencies for cleaning in student bathrooms, in common areas? How are folks handling furniture? Were we removing furniture from lounges? Were we putting signs on it? And so really kind of want to open it up to see who will share some of your changes that you maybe had from spring that are different from fall, or what are some additional things that you added for spring as a result of your fall experience. So it's going to be hard for me, but now I'm going to be quiet.
I'm going to ask a question, if it's okay, of the group. We are considering using steam cleaning. And I'm wondering if anybody else out there has experience in going with steam cleaning, especially in our bathroom environments. I'd be very interested to hear what you have to say, good, bad, or ugly, about that.
So I think our group is manageable enough. If you want to speak up, feel free to do that, or you can use a reaction or put your name in the chat so we can draw attention to the fact that you want to share.
I can jump in there while folks are thinking about a response potentially, but here at Oklahoma State University, we are not making any overarching changes to what we had set up in the fall. Minor tweaks here and there, little things, but for the most part, I mean, I guess one of the major things is that last semester we had utilized an off-campus hotel as possible isolation quarantine spaces. But we had ended that contract before the end of the fall semester because of our numbers and that we had space in order to manage it within our own area. And so obviously cost matters. And so we have cut that contract away, and we have our spaces that are set up and ready to go. So all of our isolation quarantine folks will be relocated to one of those here on campus. When it comes to Gary, you talked about steam cleaning. We have an outsourced cleaning company called ABM. They are kind of restricted on what their corporate allows them to do or says. With that being said, they have been very willing to work with us in making sure that we're, getting everybody squared away and taken care of in our community style bathrooms, in our traditional halls. They are cleaning them twice a day, Monday through Friday, and then once a day, Saturday and Sunday. Those are both increases from where we were pre-COVID. So that has been something that they were able to do. And a part of their cleaning process is to use, they have EMIS technology. And so they will spray that down throughout the bathroom on their way out. I think they do it on the way in as well, but then they give a full heavy clean and then just do that spray just to make sure if there was something not touched, there's that vapor. Then anytime that we do a room turnaround, we also have them do a full clean of the space and then do an EMIS before they leave. We know that the minute they walk out the door and a new roommate walks in or someone else walks down the hallway, that EMISting, it's dead and gone. But at least we are able to say we EMISted the space. We knew at a certain point in time we had applied that, and then we move on. So they've been accommodating with us in, drop of the hat. Oh, hey, I need to get this EMISted because it sat for a month and a half and didn't get rented. But now someone's moving in. So I don't know if that hit what you were looking for, Gary, but that's kind of at least our spring protocol.
Gary, we've only used steam for bed bugs. We've not used it in bathrooms.
Yeah, we're just looking for, I've got just a ton of apartments and suites that I have to transition, and especially tight times with COVID, but also in the summer. And in fact, all my inventory is basically suites and apartments. So getting down in there and just as a matter of staff time on the job, getting in there behind the toilets and down in the cracks and crevices and trying to figure out trying to get them off their knees and off their scrubbing. If I can find a good steaming device that I've got one coming this week to check out, but to see if I can't get in those nooks and crannies better with a good steaming device and clean versus that. So just kind of curious whether anybody else is using it. Tell me something if nobody else is.
I guess to that point, so I went ahead and posted in the chat if folks want to comment on if they use steam for cleaning in general, just in any ways, so that Gary would know perhaps who he can talk to further. Also, if you have a good product or piece of equipment that you use for steaming, maybe you're not using it currently in the way that Gary has talked about, but you have found something that is just a real good piece of equipment, let's go ahead and put that in the chat as well. To be a resource in that way, if you've got something there. It looks like Dan Alana, I apologize, Brooks shared they really haven't changed a whole lot in their protocol, but she asks a follow-up question. Are folks saving single rooms for students for the fall semester? We know we had to adjust for this year, but COVID looks somewhat different now with a vaccine and different things in place. So if folks want to kind of share what you're thinking occupancy wise, either verbally or in the chat, that would be great. So what are we holding singles for fall? I love it, Donnie. They're planning full occupancy. Yes. I like it. Okay.
We're hopeful. I mean, I think it's the same as it's been all year, right? Like our plan is only as good as the next, hour or something. I mean, so who knows?
Thanks for sharing that, Donnie. And I'll cross my fingers for you too. Okay, it looks like a lot of folks are looking a little more optimistic for fall with full or close occupancy, but we'd love for folks to continue to kind of share in the chat what your plan is for occupancy. Okay, so, and I should say, there's no intention for anything political in any of our discussion items. So next, we just wanted to put out there vaccines for staff and students. If folks had questions about what the plan was on other campuses, that's why that's in here. So if you want to share what you're doing or any questions you have on this, this is our time.
I can speak a little bit to Oregon State University has begun to prioritize essential workers for vaccine and has communicated that to our state level. Obviously, we have state guidelines with regards to 1A, 1B, and that sort of thing. But the essential workers are being prioritized first. So those who've been on campus, so most of our facilities, services staff, our custodial team, prior to the larger campus of faculty and that sort of thing. With regards to students, that decision hasn't been made as far as what the fall will look like with regards to vaccines.
Alton, is that Alton? Thank you for sharing. I can't see your name behind.
Got it. It's Antone. Yeah.
Anton, okay. Thank you for sharing that. Someone else was getting ready to speak, so I'm going to be quiet.
Hi, this is Kirsten, University of California, Davis. I think our biggest issue with the vaccines is that, 18 to 25-year-olds are like the last group of people to be vaccinated. So I think our campus was also looking at, oh, great, we've got these vaccines coming, it's going to be fine. But then you look at the majority of the population on your campus is the last to be vaccinated. So I think there's still some concern there. As far as our staff is concerned, so we also have a health center associated with our campus. So the health center has been receiving vaccines and they've all been getting vaccinated. Our campus has pretty much been telling staff that we need to utilize our primary care physicians, when our turn comes up. However, we have had some one-offs for some of our custodial and dining staff who are handling our isolation and quarantine students. They were approved to get vaccinated. So that's already happened. But yeah, I think the students being vaccinated is the biggest question is, will they be vaccinated by the time school starts in the fall?
I think a bigger question is, are you going to require vaccination before the fall? There's many conversations we've had that that's going to be almost impossible to require. And then we have a conversation that says, well, we require flu shots or we require, immunization shots. So why wouldn't we require these? So that's like Donnie said, the situation changes with the conversations by the hour. So we're up in the air, just totally up in the air right now.
This is Brandon from Temple University in Philadelphia. Very similar to what Kirsten mentioned. First of all, Philadelphia is a different health parking lot than the wider state of Pennsylvania is. We have our own health guidelines within the city that are a little bit separate from the state. So the city has been very, very strict so far on the release of the vaccine. Like Kirsten said, Temple also has a large health component attached to the university. So we have been getting vaccine and mainly dealing with the healthcare workforce first. Just last week, a few key people, myself included, on our team were able to get access to vaccines for the first round because of servicing our quarantine and isolation facility for housing students. And they're saying, you know, the one thing that is helping our effort as a staff right now is slightly lower than expected adoption of the vaccine by the healthcare group. It's not being taken as prevalently as I guess one would predict. So it's leaving extra doses at the end of the day. So we've been able to slip a few people in, you know, if they wait and we pay them to stay a little bit later in the day. We've gotten a couple of key people vaccinated that way by just them not wanting to waste a dose at the end of the day that's already been prepared. So if that's an option for those of you to reach out to whoever is, you know, controlling the strings in the background, you know, I got 4 people done last week just based on if you hang around till 4:30 and we can see how the day is going. If a few people don't show up for their appointments, they got jabbed in the arm and they went home. So, but yeah, in the city, we're still working in that first 1A phase. It has not moved to really anybody outside of healthcare just yet. So to try and figure out the plan out if students would ever even be in that magical matrix getting toward the fall, I would laugh at anybody in our area planning on that being a potential way of looking at our housing for the fall at this point. I just don't see it happening.
There's a lot of great comments. Well, there's a lot of interesting comments in the chat, not putting any type of judgment on the comments, but I would encourage folks to take a look at that as you're navigating conversations on your campus. Great question was asked about how staff are responding to the vaccine. I think it sounds like, Brandon, perhaps, you know, you've got some folks that might be interested because they're willing to take those last 4 at the end of the day. But it sounds like there are some staff in some areas that maybe have some fear of the vaccine and some hesitancy. And so do folks kind of want to share what their experience is related to that? You know, on some ends, we're like, yes, bring on the vaccine. And on other ends, we're like, oh, that was too fast. And vaccines aren't my thing in general. So let's have some conversation about that. So if there's any tips on how folks are navigating conversations, not again to get into one side or the other, but let's just share.
I'll share since I was just there. The staff that, I mean, I got 4 people vaccinated and I probably went through 8 to get to the 4 that I needed for the 4 yeses. I've ran into resistance, particularly with staff of color, which, you know, if you've been watching and reading, that was to be expected. Some of my staff that I would probably say are a little more conservative on the political spectrum also were a little hesitant, but most of those people also have underlying medical conditions or live with people who do. And so while they weren't really eager to suddenly be thrust into the option, they went and did it. So it seems like the thing that has been getting people to the yes is not necessarily the public good, it's been personal circumstances. And I happen to know, I mean, one of our plumbers who's a key member of our team has a pacemaker, another one has a family member with MS. So their personal situations are what are, yes, no, if it's available, I'll go get it. Other folks have been, no, you go first and we'll see what happens kind of a thing. So I wish you all luck with that.
Are there comments others would like to share on the topic? So I would encourage you to kind of scroll through and kind of see where folks are landing and kind of where things are kind of happening campus by campus, because sometimes I think it's kind of good to have that idea as we have conversations on our campuses. Let's go to supplies. So one of our tough things that we talked about quite a bit in the summer and fall were supplies. And so just wanted to open that up to see if folks are continuing to have any supply issues. You know, we were having a hard time with gloves for a while, and glove prices have really gone up quite a bit. And so, and sprayers were real hard to come by and back ordered. And so wanted to open it up to see where folks might still be having some challenges. and how we might be able to help each other.
I'll jump in and just say from a supply side of things, I think our procurement office has done a lot in making sure that there were ample opportunities through, it's called OK Corral here, so that just like office supplies, getting vendors vetted and listed and posted, and that has, I think, helped some for us to be able to keep the stockpile of things as needed. We had those seen so our facilities, we have a small, tiny in-res life facilities group for like moving furniture. The rest of our work orders go to OSU facilities management, and they have had the random things that, a random part or, blinds, I think it was an issue at one point in time because of work stoppages at one point at whatever manufacturer or wherever. Those places were bogged down, so they weren't able to, meet an order number that had been thrown out that typically never even is in question of coming in time. But so we've seen some random slowdowns on certain work orders because of waiting for something to get shipped, because FedEx is chock full with everything under the sun right now. But as far as like the basic essentials of like gloves and disposable masks and that kind of stuff, we have been able, at least in our end, to keep us at a level that's doable. So,
Thank you, Joel. As we continue to talk about supply issues, I want to go ahead and throw out, Brian Rock has asked about some testing. And so some campuses, I think maybe Brandon, you shared that you're testing students twice a week. And so Brian has asked the question about how you're handling that with enforcing that with students. And so Brandon has shared some information on that in the chat. Others, use the chat and share what kind of testing perhaps you're requiring and how that's being managed so that we can continue to have some information there. Dee Dee shared in regards to supplies, they haven't had a lot of issues. Liquid hand sanitizer to go in wall-mounted dispensers has been a challenge. Dee Dee, we had that challenge too. I think it took us probably until October to get everything stocked that we wanted to on that.
We're still waiting, Teresa, actually. So we're still waiting.
Oh.
Yeah, so I've got like all the dispensers literally sitting in boxes in one of my penthouse areas because it still hasn't shaken free yet. And maybe it's an out west thing. I don't know. Although I saw Wyoming say they haven't had any issues, so I'm not sure.
No. Will folks share in the chat for Dee Dee if you have had good luck on cartridges for wall-mounted hand sanitizers? So perhaps that can be helpful to Dee Dee and her team. Our supply issue at this point is we had a lot of hand sanitizer donated with expiration dates that are coming up, and we're not getting use. And so one of our concerns is we're going to have all this hand sanitizer. So I maybe should ship it to Dee Dee, but it won't fit in your wall mounts, Dee Dee. Our other issues, we did purchase a lot of bottles for use in departments, and we didn't have a lot of takers on that. So for us, we have like too much of non-dispenser hand sanitizer. Okay, Brandon, great. Brandon is sharing some information on hand sanitizer. Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah, we abandoned the wall-mounted units. We started taking them down because there was just no way to get the Purell, or similar packages. That the hospitals are eating them up like crazy. So we've gone to these foot pedal mounted types that I just showed you the link from Amazon. Those gallon containers last a lot longer, so we're not running ourselves crazy refilling them. And we're able to get them from wider variety of suppliers, and this has been a great change of pace for us.
Brandon, thank you for sharing that and the link. Hopefully that will be helpful to folks as well. Okay, I'm going to watch our time, so we're going to keep going. Sustainability. So I'm going to be a little too honest. So for us, sometimes the sustainability efforts of our work have kind of been put a little bit to the side because our priority's been killing COVID. And so I just wanted to kind of open that up to see how folks are maybe bringing sustainability back in, or maybe you've still been able to weave that in. And Robin, if you're still on the call, I hope that doesn't upset you, my confession, but just wanted to kind of open that one up to see what folks might want to share in this area. Or if
Well,
you
what
also
I
need to
was
have a
gonna share-
confession. Carolyn?
Yeah, I was just going to share related to that, that's been a big hit on our campus is the dining areas and the amount of trash we're now seeing and experiencing. So it's in the opposite direction of sustainability. Obviously, compostable things are always better, but that even became a challenge for us. So we're not back on the path yet, but it's just another area that we took steps, I think, backwards. But hope to get back at it once we have some different parameters to work with.
Brian, thank you for sharing. Brian's sharing that he's also feeling similar things, Carolyn, and somebody, the to-go dining, right? That is tough. That impacted our grounds program too, because we had all of our outside containers were full from folks coming out of the dining centers. And Danlana, thank you for sharing that as well. So we'll keep that out there as we move forward. We'll continue to think when we can to get our sustainability back in there. Oh, okay, Carolyn, you've added a bunch of outside containers. That makes sense. Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see how we shift back in that area. All right, we have a couple of topics that folks have requested for today that are not COVID. Yay, I don't know how others feel about that. So I'm gonna jump to those. Someone asked, how are you handling vendor access to student spaces? So again, this is not COVID related. So you have a vendor that needs to do work in a student room, a student apartment, student suite. What does that look like? Do they get a key? Are they escorted? That's the question. And Dee Dee, if you want to jump in with any more specific things that we want to talk about related to that, I'll let you do that.
Nope, just kind of taking a temperature change, making sure that we've always escorted, but then it just made me think like maybe we aren't doing the best practice, or maybe we're to one extreme or the other. So it's sort of just a temperature check for me that it looks like it's a fairly standard way of practice, maybe with different colleges and universities across the country. So just kind of had a question about that.
Dee Dee, we escort everybody. And what we're trying to come to grips with, though, is can we figure out a different modality to address our escorting needs? By that, I mean, if I've got a contractor that needs to do work in a building or in a student space, I end up more times than not sending one of my maintenance people or tradespeople with them to be the escort. So now I've got, it's just a financial issue for me. I've got a high dollar maintenance person compared to maybe a student worker or whatever that I could use for that. So it really is a matter of trying to figure out how we can best use our resources and keep that fiduciary responsibility alive, even in these hard times, because I've got whatever dollar an hour you're paying your HVAC mechanic to be with your HVAC contractor to do that same work while I sit there and watch it and get done. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So it's who's doing the escorting, but we are escorting, there's no question.
Okay. Yeah, that's an excellent point. Gary, that's also some of the reasons I asked we're just under about 6 months in a new centralized model. And so some things, that we used to depend on some team members to do for us, we've had more pushback under a centralized model for some of that. And escorting's been one of those things. So I appreciate that because I also have the same financial considerations as well.
We're advanced scheduling everything that we possibly can with the student that's in the room, understanding both that they're taking a lot of virtual classes, and so if we have to get into their space, we're trying to schedule that ahead of time. So number one, we don't interrupt their class, and two, we can set it up in a time where they can leave and go somewhere else, so that way they're safe and the vendor or the maintenance staff that are going into their particular space is safe as well. We're utilizing the common areas and the lounges on our floors a lot more as kind of a holding pen in the event that there's like an emergency, a flood, something like that, where we've got to relocate the students. Okay, you go here, you can hang out, and then our residence life staff will come in and work individually with those particular folks if we have to relocate them. We are, I think, temporarily reassigning folks a lot more than perhaps we have in the past, just to get them out of those particular spaces and to give our both our vendors and our in-house maintenance and facilities folks a lot more flexibility in terms of going into student rooms and allowing them the opportunity, the flexibility to go in earlier or maybe stay later in terms of working on some of those projects to fix some of those issues to get students back into their spaces as quickly as possible.
I think I muted myself to talk. Thank you for sharing that, Brian. Brian, I shared in the chat, I'd be real interested to hear what kind of man hours are going into that pre-scheduling with the students. That's something we talked about, and folks just felt like, you know, with all the additional COVID tasks and things that were going on, there was some hesitation to do pre-scheduling. That also hasn't typically been how our maintenance staff have approached their work into student spaces. And so there's a little bit of a mind shift that has to happen. Oh, I didn't hit send. I'm a mess. There we go. Now it's in the chat. So there's a little bit of shift for folks on top of all the other shifting and pivoting that we've been asked. So I'm kind of curious about that. But it sounds like, Dee Dee, we're consistent, and folks are managing with escorts. Cost-wise, though, that is something for folks to think about and how that's working. We had another question come in about dryer exhaust cleaning. And so I know we have people who are managing this on their campus and have contracts in place or otherwise. So can we have some wisdom shared now? How are you handling dryer exhaust cleaning?
Yeah, we use a contracted company. They come in the summer and hit them all, take care of them all through the summer.
It's part of our contract for our laundry vendor. They come in as part of that contract once a year, and they keep track of it once in a while, and they're preventative sweeps through our buildings.
So if anyone has that done apart from their laundry machine or laundry program vendor, perhaps you've written some specifications for that. If you would be willing to let Joel know that, because that might be helpful if there's not a contract in place, or for anyone else who doesn't have a contract in place, what are some of those items that went into that as folks navigated getting a contract? So if you've got information like that.
One of the things that we're looking at, we're due to go to bid, whenever normal occupancy kind of rears its head again, to go to bid to redo our laundry contract. I'm pushing our team to embed the cleaning within the contract and allowing the laundry vendor to subcontract that part out, so that it takes it completely off of they have to figure out who it's going to be, that it's done properly. And so that what we get now is this finger pointing thing of the laundry vendor says this is the reason why something's not working. The cleaning company says, well, we did this. I'm tired of hearing that. So we're going to embed it all together and force them to work together and leave me out of it. So I'll let you know how it goes.
Gary, sorry, Teresa. Gary, our laundry company does it for the public laundry, but all the ones in our apartments that we own, we have to contract for those.
Yeah.
Gary, I think you'd pulled a Teresa and muted yourself to talk.
Yeah, if you can get it in your contract, that's the way to go. And I'm with you, Donnie. I do the same thing I've got way too many washers and dryers in my units, but I agree.
All right, thank you all for sharing on that. Love that. I knew there'd be lots of answers on that one. Okay, another question came in today about inventory management and tracking. I want to say, Joel, help me out for furniture. So the question, I believe, was, are folks using your CMMS for tracking your furniture, or are you using something else? And what would you recommend for that? Okay, so we've got a couple options. Some folks are using CMMS. Some people are using Hope and Prayer. So thank you. I'm sorry.
That's awesome. Thanks. I'm the one who asked the question, and it's just really frustrating to try to manage all things inventory on an Excel spreadsheet. And it feels like I'm in, I don't know, 1970 or something. So I guess I'm not alone out there with some folks that are still hoping and praying as well.
Dee Dee, as I was getting ready to leave Georgia, we didn't pull the trigger on it, but I had my IT person, or my low voltage person, who was pretty much a genius at this mess, talked me into really going down the rabbit hole with RFID, the radio frequency identification. And it's you can get the small tags. The small tags are not expensive. They're very cheap. And they'll stick right onto your furniture. And the tricky part is getting the readers within your building so that you'll know when furniture moves from one area to another. It's on your computer. You can see it moving. You can see. I mean, it's just an amazing new technology. Resent's not the right term. I was reluctant to go down the barcoding rabbit hole because I felt like that was an antiquated technology that has really, we've gone beyond that in terms of being able to, have hand readers everywhere and take your staff through and train them how to do that. And so I'm not there yet, but if I'm going down that way, I'm going to probably go back down the RFID way, and at least to see what the technology would lend itself to letting me do.
Thank you guys for sharing. It sounds like we're all over the board on inventory management. So Dee Dee, you are definitely not alone, and there's lots of places in between. Sounds like we've got folks using Excel, some using Word, some using CMMS. And so kind of all over the board on that one. I'm real sad because our time is up. And so I'm sorry we didn't get to everything today, but good news is we do have another meeting next month, February 22nd, same time, same place. And so please let Joel know if you want to get onto our list. You can fill out that link there in the chat, and that will just keep you on our mailing list. We're not going to hold you to any time commitment, but would love for you to join us. Thank you so much for the conversation today. We will, Joel, do you think we can get the chat out to folks? Joel will get the chat out to folks,
Yep.
But I have to respect your time. And so our time is up. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you all. And I'm sending good vibes your way as we continue into the spring. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, all. It's good to see everyone.
Be well.